time. Hello, and welcome to Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Podcast. I am your host, Shatan Noir, and this week I am talking to Mr. Joshua Shapiro. Joshua, could you tell me more about your background and what got you started into the very fascinating subject of crystal skulls?
Okay, so when you ask me about my background, are you talking about the work that I'm doing from a spiritual perspective only, or the whole thing in general?
The whole thing in general. I wanna know everything.
Okay, sure. So I grew up in Chicago. My father encouraged me to go into computers. So for the early part of my life, I'm 64 now. I received a degree from the University of Illinois in computer science, and I started taking computer jobs. However, as soon as I left and started working outside of college, I started going to bars to meet people, and the people I was meeting had spiritual experiences. So it caused me to do a search because I'm a typical Aries. If there's something mysterious or something I don't understand, the fire inside of me drives me to try to find out, why is this going on? Because I know there's a reason for everything. So because I was meeting these people, I started to join some spiritual groups in the Chicago area. And eventually, after working in the computer field for several years, then I decided to go completely and follow my spiritual path. So I'm not exactly sure when that was, probably late 20s, early 30s, like early 1980s, I would say. And of course, my family had no clue what I'm doing. They were very worried about me. And this search caused me, I had an invitation from a friend of my brother's to go to California. So literally, I think it was like around 1981 or something. I went completely on faith, found a friend who had a car, and we just drove to California. So pretty much that was the beginning of what I would say, the adventures that I've had in life, and trusting my intuition and, just to go with the things that I'm inspired to do. So it wasn't on this trip, but of course I made a lot of contacts in California. When I went back in 1983, that's when I had my first contact with the crystal skull. Now, up until that point, just like everyone else, I had seen Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, where, he had this image of the most famous crystal skull on the planet. Excuse me, the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull.
Yes.
And I think I also saw a book that he did as well, which had that crystal skull on the cover. But up until that point in time, I had no clue that this would become a very important aspect of my life, because around that time, prior to seeing my first crystal skull, I was pretty much just following a spiritual path, more involved with UFOs, I would say, and being what I called an Aquarian Age networker, which is, like a collector of all kinds of information and connecting people who have similar interests. So I went to visit a store in San Jose, California in April 1983 around, that would be my 28th birthday. And I had met these friends like at a psychic fair or something the year before. And when I got there, Francois was the name of the owner, and I had a connection with her, soul connection. I think she was my mom in the past. Plus, she also had a son who had the exact same birthday I did, except he had passed away. So she pulls out these pictures of an amethyst crystal skull, which we know today by the name of Ami, which means friend. And as soon as I start looking at the pictures, I had what I call my inner earthquake experience, because there was a real earthquake that happened in California while I was looking at them, but also while I was looking at the picture of this crystal skull, I felt myself like vibrating inside. So it was an inner and outer earthquake. And essentially what happened to me is, through the picture, by the time I left, I had received a message something like this saying, we are returning, meaning the crystal skulls, to help humanity to evolve more spiritually. And now that you know, Joshua, what are you going to do? So I call that day one of being a crystal skull explorer. And when I call myself a crystal skull explorer, because a lot of people will say, oh, Joshua is the crystal skull expert. I don't like the word expert because I believe no one person is an expert on everything. And there's many aspects to the crystal skulls. You know, some I know, some I don't know as well. But an explorer is someone who says, we have a mystery, we have something that's important for humanity. I'm going to go check it out, and I'm going to share with people the very best information that I can, and then let them decide what they want to use, you know, what's valid for them, what makes sense. So after I saw the picture, and I became very good friends with the owner of this bookstore, she then told me that the people who had this crystal skull, they had an art gallery nearby. There was actually a group of men, like businessmen, and they were going to show the crystal skull at the art gallery, like, you know, a week or two after I saw the picture, and I was invited to go. So again, as an Aries, any type of new and different experience, I'm going for it. So, because, you know, you can't, I mean, like I just did a local lecture here in Atlanta for a group of dowsers, and of course they got a really good feel of the energy of the crystal skulls from the images and the slides, because any simulation of a crystal skull through a picture or whatever, people can pick up on it. But to be in the presence of the actual artifact, that is an extremely special opportunity, and especially with this crystal skull, it was, because at that time there were very few people who were aware of it. So, but I believe that we all have a destiny, and that crystal skull, I was supposed to make the connection with it, and it was the catalyst that turned me into a crystal skull explorer, because upon having the experience with the picture and then seeing it in person, which I'll tell you in a moment what happened, it kind of like it said, here is, you know, something that you're going to be connected to for the rest of your life. So anyway, I went to this art gallery, and the reason that they were showing the crystal skull is because the group of businessmen who had it, what they had done prior to this is they had made an agreement with a Mayan shaman from Mexico who had this crystal skull, and the shaman needed money, so they gave him a loan. And the idea was if he repaid the loan, then he would get the artifact back, but he did not do so in a timely manner. So they assumed ownership of it. And then there was a young man who purportedly was wealthy, who I think I met him through the bookstore. And so, you know, he came to look at it. They were trying to sell it to him. But anyway, when it came to my turn, I was allowed to touch the skull. So I touched it on the top part of it. Now, this amethyst skull is not a skull. It is made out of amethyst quartz. It's more like, I would say, the size of a young adult or a teenager or something like that. Normally, a crystal skull, which is human size, is going to weigh between 11 and 12 pounds.
Yes.
This one was between 8 and 9. So it was a smaller size, single piece, beautifully done. Had some damage to it in the front part of it. So I was allowed to touch the skull. I touched it with my right hand on the top of it, and I felt an energy go from the skull through my right hand, up my arm, and stopped at my shoulder. And then after that, I saw in my mind's eye, now, my spiritual gifts, which are the strongest, is my telepathic gift with spirit, and also I can feel energy. Like when I do my private sessions with people, first I pick up who they are, because I can feel completely who they are. Immediately I know their strengths and their weaknesses, and then I will also hear telepathic messages from spirit, you know, which they'll just give me an idea, and then I'll go, oh yeah, that's right, I got to talk to them. So with this crystal skull, since you know, having interaction is not as strong for me, because when I see things in my mind's eye, it's always grayscale. It's not detailed with my eyes open, but I have it. So I had some visions of this with the skull. that it was floating over my right shoulder, which I continued to feel. That's how it's connected to me. And then I also felt one time that it was placed over my head like it was hollow. Now, at that point in 1983, it was unknown that there existed crystal skulls, but subsequently, say, I don't know, maybe about 16 years later, I went to a crystal skull conference and I actually saw hollow crystal skulls were coming out of Mexico also. So that's kind of how I started with crystal skulls. And then after that, I started to share pictures of the amethyst skull with people while I was doing my spiritual Aquarian Age networking talks and UFO talks. But then in 1985, while I was living in California, I met the co-authors of the first book that I became involved with called Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed. I'm sorry, it was in 1988. Right, 1988. It's hard to keep track of all the activities that have happened over all the years. No, it was in 88. Because 85 I went into San Diego, and then I moved back to San Francisco. So what happened is while I was in San Diego, because San Diego is close to Mexico, they were showing videos by Billy Myers, who's the Swiss farmer that's had contact with the Pleiadians, and he was recording their ships with his camera and video. So I had a copy of that. So a group in Berkeley invited me to share that, and at that meeting was Sandra Bowen, who eventually I had a relationship with for a period of time, and she was co-author of this first book, and her teacher, F.R. Nick Nasarino, at that time was known as the Crystal Skull person. So I connected with them through her, and then eventually in 1988, we put together a book which was called Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed. First it was kind of like just a photocopy version, spiral bound, and then in 89, we got together a number of people and we were able to actually publish it in a regular book form. So that's kind of how I got started, and it's never stopped since, the 80s when I started meeting the skulls.
That's very interesting. Now, I have a question. You said your first experience was with an amethyst quartz skull. I'm not sure everybody realizes, but from what I've understood, because I've seen the two skulls that Mary here in Michigan has. They don't just come in clear quartz. They come in many different, I don't want to say mineral forms, but gemstones.
That's correct.
And so, how many? I know she had spoke of there was 13 major ones. Could you tell me more about that?
Sure. So to answer your question first about what kind of gemstones are they coming in, every one you can imagine. Now the reason we say that is because there are carvers, modern carvers today, who are carving crystal skulls by the thousands every year, and they're doing it in every gemstone you can imagine. So it's not just quartz crystal. The original crystal skulls that came out, which were known publicly, included the Mitchell Hedges skull, the British crystal skull, and the Paris crystal skull. They were all from clear quartz. The Mitchell Hedges skull was two pieces, the lower jaw was separate, and the other two skulls were a single piece like this amethyst skull I saw. When the amethyst skull came out in the 1980s, this was, I think, the first one that was known publicly that's considered to be an old skull. In other words, made, who knows, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. That wasn't quartz. But over the years, this is now like 36 years later, there's a lot of skulls coming out of like China and Tibet, and they're made of all different kind of gemstones. They don't look like human bone skulls, and rose quartz has come out. So pretty much you can expect to see, and also too in Mexico, when we went there, I've seen crystal skulls done in different gemstones as well. So they're pretty much being made by all of them. Now, in reference to this concept of the legend of the 13 original or master skulls, this indeed was discussed in the first book that we wrote about, Mysteries of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, which is out of print right now. and probably will never be printed again because Mr. Nostorino died, and there's just a lot more aspects of the crystal skulls to write about than what we were writing back then. But they say that there's an indigenous legend, which could be a Mayan legend, although the Mayans talked about 52 skulls, not just 13, but mostly through, I would say, Native Americans. The legend of 13 skulls came. And what basically that's about is that there was an original set that was made of 13, and all the other skulls that are coming up, some of the very old ones, like if you look at the Mitchell Hedges skull versus the British, they're very similar in shape and form, although the Mitchell Hedges skull is very sophisticated and done, and the British crystal skull is more primitive. So it could be the British skull, and this was speculated by some researchers, was a copy of it. But the legends say that there's an original set of 13. Now, when the Sci-Fi Channel decided to do their 2-hour special, they looked at this theory, and they tried to say, well, which of the skulls do we know right now could be part of this set? So the Amethyst skull was one that they were looking at, and the British Museum one was one they were looking at, and the Mitchell Hedges skull. But based upon what I would call soul memories, as well as just having conversations with the crystal skulls, which for most people doesn't make any sense, but there is a living consciousness that surrounds them. I seriously doubt that any of the original 13 have come out yet, because their vibrational frequency is of such a high nature, people literally could disintegrate in their presence. Now, that would imply, if that's the case, then they would be involved in civilizations in the past, like maybe during a time of Atlantis or Lemuria, where they were a very highly evolved, not only technological, spiritually civilization. And, so there is one that I've written about, which is really strange. I call it the Blue Skull in Peru, where I have a 300-page book, Search for the Blue Skull in Peru, that came out initially in 2012 and 2013, and then I was inspired to update it last year, where it's a crystal skull around me all the time in my mind's eye. It will come and sit on my hand, and I will put my hand out for people doing public talks, and they will feel a tremendous energy coming from my hand when that happens, and I also feel like a slight weight there. But yet, this crystal skull has never physically manifested in recent times. So it's possible that this blue skull could have been connected to one of the 13. But the problem with all of this is, and this is part of what I teach, is people get too caught up in, the skull is very old, so it's the only ones that are important, and all these other ones, copies that were made, or stylized skulls that were made, or even the modern ones, have no purpose. From my perspective, you can't possibly understand what the crystal skulls are about unless you understand all the different types that are known to exist. And you have to take into consideration, like the newer ones, because I know for some people, when they have a chance to see these older skulls, the vibrational frequency of the energy they contain is so high that instead of helping the person, it literally could cause not damage, but it would bring about what I would call spontaneous healing that they may not be prepared. It's like if you go into a high energy vortex and you're not prepared to deal with it, you're necessarily going to respond to it in the best way, whereas some of the newer skulls that are made, they have the vibrational frequency of the energies of today, and sometimes it's better for someone to start to work with that and acclimate to it, and then eventually they have a chance to see the older ones. So my personal belief is that even though I agree that there is one or more sets of 13 crystal skulls that were made very long ago, I don't believe that any of these crystal skulls are available right now, and that includes the Mitchell Hedges skull. Although it's the most powerful one I've ever seen, I don't believe it's one of the original ones. So the key, I think, to take away from all this is for a person who feels an affinity for it to either attempt to acquire their own crystal skull, and that's part of the work that we do. We help people to acquire it and we teach them how to work with it, or to actually go when some of the guardians have the older skull, go and have an experience like the conference that's coming up in Chicago in September. There's going to be a number of crystal skulls there, which the people who attend, they will have a tremendous opportunity to visit with them. And undoubtedly, they will feel an affinity for certain ones and not an affinity for some other one.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you find when you're examining or interacting with the different crystal skulls, I know that most gemstones have, according to pagan beliefs and other beliefs, each gemstone has its own magical properties. Do you find that true with the crystal skulls, that some skulls that are made of certain gems are more honed into certain energies? I know rose quartz is supposed to be for love.
Right.
Green, like malachite, is more for prosperity. So have you noticed that, or does that not apply with the crystal skulls?
No, I think that the quality of the material from which the crystal skull is made is still present. The only thing which I don't know if anybody fully understands this, but it's very apparent this is going on, is that there is a living consciousness that I think what they decided, and this is my theory, they said, how do we help humanity to expand and to become more in touch with their spiritual essence? We need to provide for them some type of tools that they can resonate with, which they'll work with, which could help them to elevate into these higher frequencies of energy. So for whatever reason, they said, we're going to select the shape and form of, I guess, a human bone skull, because my belief is the human bone skull was created by higher intelligence because it recognized that the shape of the skull allows us to receive cosmic knowledge and information, which then filters down through the different levels of consciousness. And so if we take quartz crystal, which already is a receiver and transmitter of different vibrational frequencies of energy, and we put it into this shape, which is doing that, the combination of the two becomes a very powerful, let's say, spiritual tool that when people start working with it, people are going to respond in different ways. So it's a combination of that with the type of gemstone that it is, with what energy and what information has been placed into it. So and then you can't predict how a person is going to respond in the presence of the crystal skulls, because some, in their subconscious mind, the image of a human bone skull scares them silly, because they've been taught that the human bone skull represents death, doom, and evil. But that doesn't make any sense, because it's a part of our body, so that we only have this one part that's evil. The indigenous people understood that the skull represents form that allows us to communicate with higher levels of knowledge and information. And that's why, like the Mayans and Aztecs, who understand the shape of the bone skull, they use it in a much different way. So as you can see from all these different points I'm making, the crystal skull, in this simplistic term, is just a gemstone put it to the shape of a human skull or an animal skull or an alien skull or a stylized skull. But yet what surrounds it is, it's hard to fully comprehend and understand, because it's having an impact on people. And then the other thing I noticed is, like in the end part of the 1980s, all of a sudden, all these carvers start carving skulls, and they can't possibly do it unless there's people who actually want to have them.
Right.
So it's the way I look at it is that it becomes a tool for awakening consciousness, and for people who have worked with crystal skulls in other lifetimes, it's an opportunity to work with this sacred artifact again, to help to elevate the vibrational frequencies of the earth and eventually bring peace, which was the initial message basically I got from the amethyst skull call to me when I saw it back in 1983, is that this is the whole point of why the crystal skulls were created before and why they're returning now.
Now, do you have any crystal skulls? Or are you a guardian of one?
We have about 30 crystal skulls that we take care of.
Wow, that's a large number. Now, are there any special ones that are that make their presence known more than the others?
Yeah, we have some crystal skulls, I would say, that stand up more than the others. But as far as them being more special or not, I look at it that there are a family of skulls that are working together. And because there's 30 of them, that means there's 30 different frequencies of energy that are available when somebody comes up to us. Let's say either they have a session or they want to have contact. I just watch, and people are just drawn to a certain one. And it doesn't have to do with the size. It doesn't have to do necessarily with which gemstone it's made from. It's just whatever frequency it's broadcasting. So each one, as we received it, gives us a name. And the name is a representative of the type of frequencies of energy and the service that it offers to people. So for example, the one that we were using with the dowsers on Thursday evening this week was called Portal de Luz, which is Portal of Light in English. We picked a Portuguese name because the skull was carved in Brazil. And that one was gifted to me by an ex-wife at a Crystal Skull conference in 1999. And I also know that who the carver is in Brazil. I've met him. So the energies that are around this crystal skull would be representative of what happens when you have a new skull that's carved. However, there's been many people who've had experience with him, and I feel like it has a more masculine energy, that are comparable to what people are telling me they have experiences with the older ones. So the only thing that I can speculate is because my soul has worked with crystal skulls probably in a number of lifetimes, and the intelligence that's working through that crystal, those two combinations has brought the skull to life. And also because I've taken him to many places, like he's been in Stonehenge, he's been in crop circles. I don't even know how many world peace meditations we've participated with, how many individuals have held him. So the combination of all the travels of sharing him, and, he went with me in Australia. So just these different places, it's kind of brought him to life. And I know that one time I went to a movie that was about the Mayan prophecy, and I think it was in 2001. And there was a real Mayan elder there who, his culture, they had access to crystal skulls. Matter of fact, they were talking about that when the Europeans came and started conquering the Americas, they stole their crystal skulls from them, and they wanted to have them back because obviously the Europeans had no clue how to work with them in a ceremonial way.
Right.
So when the Mayan elders, he thought this was one of theirs, but he was fooled because of the energy the skull was putting out. In other words, he wasn't putting out the energy anymore of a brand new skull that doesn't have energy. He was putting out all the different frequencies and energies of the other older skulls he'd met and the places we've been and all kinds of things. And so the elder was fooled. And then I showed him another skull made by the realized that it had been one. So that Portal de Luz was showing is it's totally irrelevant, whether the crystal is very, very old or whether ancient or new, depending upon who the guardian is. Active, very active, a very powerful role in assisting. There was another test that we did with this particular crystal.
You're starting to break up really bad.
Okay, how about now?
Okay, you're
Hear me
good.
now? Okay. So again, there was this group in Belgium, and they were using a device similar to a dowsing rod, except it has numbers on the side, so the practitioner is able to measure a specific frequency of energy. And when he does, there's like this lever there. It flips by itself, which means it's influenced by energy. It's called a Leckyer antenna. And so we brought Portal de Luz to the group to see what energy is the crystal skull sending out. And so they start measuring it, and they told the teacher, because the teacher kept saying, this is a stone, we're wasting our time. There's nothing special about it at all, it's just a quartz crystal. So his students measured the frequencies coming out and went back to him and said, well, we're sorry, but this skull is showing off the frequencies of energy of the 5 human senses. And so the teacher said, no, it's not possible. Do it again. They did it twice more, and each time they did it, they kept getting the same result. So to me, the skull was showing in a way that it's able to emulate life through it because of the consciousness or the being that are working through it. And since quartz crystal can work in different dimensions, and this idea came from a book called The House Between the Worlds by Marion Bradley Zimmer. She said quartz crystal stays the same shape and form when it goes from dimension to dimension. So if that's true, then it becomes a bridge to allow other beings or other energies from other dimensions to come through here. So, it's just, these are the kinds of things that the crystal skulls show, and how they're helping and benefiting people in many different ways. So the key is it's a personal experience. Like, for example, there was one time where I was at a conference where the Mitchell Hedges skull was, and there was this lady who had a center, and she loved amethyst. And when I showed at her center the slides of the amethyst skull, she felt much more connected to that one than she had when she was in the presence of the Mitchell Hedges skull. So it's kind of a personal experience. And there's going to be people who are going to come and have no experience with the crystal skulls, because we hear from people sometimes that get one and they say, well, the skull's not talking to me, it's not giving me the name or nothing, I don't feel anything. So it could just be, that for that person they don't have the affinity for it, or they're not ready, that they need to go through some other personal lessons or spiritual growth before they're ready, or maybe it's come to them because then they pass it on to someone else who can really work with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that a lot of it is when somebody's going, like when they go to a convention or a workshop and there's items available for purchase, you're drawn to what appeals to you. Like for me, it's teal colored stones like apatite and turquoise, things of those shades. So I think part of it is what you're drawn to.
Yes, and that's true, because everyone is a unique note in God's infinite symphony. So you're going to relate to gemstones, music, like there's certain songs, I'm a musician also, and there are certain songs I play where it takes me into a very high space. I feel like total joy that flows through me, and if I don't stop myself, and I just really flow with the music. So it's basically vibration. Each person has their own vibration and what they're ready and so on. But I think from a higher perspective, why the skulls are coming out is like eventually there's going to be a group of them that are going to come together. And if it goes the way that I wrote in a story that we had translated into a script for a movie, it's like when it's the right time for this set of skulls to come together, it could be the key moment in our history that those group, whether it's 12 or 13 or 24 or 52, whatever the number is, literally shift the vibrational frequency of the earth and we go into the golden age. Because I have a guide who's around me. His name is Argus. And Argus says to me, Joshua, I am who you will become before the end of this lifetime, this current lifetime. I'm in your future. I'm you. He cannot show me exactly what happens in the future, okay? But he assures me, and I also, for another book I'm writing, a novel, where our main character goes onto the other side, which would be heaven or paradise or whatever you want to call it. I was talking to a medium who was channeling Pleiadian, and the Pleiadian echoed the same thing Argus told me, is that in about 20 years, the world as we know it will be paradise. And for most people, they find this impossible to believe because we still have here in 2019 so much controversy and unrest and people fighting against each other for God knows for, whatever reason. But there's, I believe, some key events that are getting ready to come up that are really going to shake up people, most likely connected to UFO disclosure. Because, we're having contact, or the secret governments are, they're having contact with extraterrestrials, many, many groups of extraterrestrials. And eventually, the truth has to come out. And that's what some of the groups are saying to them. If you don't tell the people of your planet that we're here and you're having we're just going to do it ourselves and there'll be nothing you can do to stop it.
Exactly.
So I think this is kind of scaring them. And so this is the reason why they're not killing the whistleblowers anymore, because they recognize, there's nothing they can do. The information's going to come out anyway. And I link the crystal skulls in alignment with this. I call them the galactics. They know about these skulls very well. It's probably they who brought them to humanity, was a special gift to help us in our spiritual evolution. And, it's like all this information is coming out right now. So I do believe that there will come a moment when a special group of skulls will come together. I don't know if what I wrote in my story is the way it's going to happen or not. The vision I have of it, but it could be symbolic of it. And that single event is what could shift our planet into the higher frequency. These very old, powerful skulls coming together have been scattered all over the planet. Some of them, like the skull, are in totally different dimensions. And then they just kind of come up in one plate, special meditation, and it's the catalyst that brings our planet into this golden age my future self is talking about.
Now, you had mentioned the convention in Chicago a few minutes ago. Could you tell me more about that and what attendees can expect to experience while they're there?
Yes. So anyway, Mary Dulot is the name of the coordinator for the conference.
Yes.
And she was telling me she got a message she should create one, and I said, yes, that would be wonderful, because all the ones I've attended, and I've also helped to organize some conferences in Europe myself, even though the organization of it is a bear, it takes a lot of work to do it, and I really applaud her dedication and effort to do it. When you finally get everybody there, it's like you're living the future, because you have all the energies of the crystal skulls there, and you have these great teachers who have all kinds of amazing information to share. So she's put something together for September 20th to the 22nd. I will be one of the speakers for the conference, and I volunteered to speak about the history of the crystal skulls and about some messages that I've been receiving from them. And I wanted to do this because most of the speakers are going to focus on the crystal experience they had. And I feel it's to honor them all. I'll pop up with my wife, Katrina. The ones that we have are amazing, and a lot of people have written to us after they have a chance to work with them and had some amazing experiences. But the crystal skulls tell me that, they have their own family, and they love to come together with other skulls from around the world and share the knowledge they have with each other and so on. So for the people who decide to come to this conference, Mary is more geared than I am toward kind of a shamanistic approach. She likes to support a lot of the indigenous cultures who are struggling in the world, not being respected. So I know that she set up for the Friday night and the Saturday night of the conference some kind of ceremony that will be conducted. And then I know the Bill Holman, who has the Mitchell Hedges Go, he's also going to be present. And he's going to do a special meditation to end the conference on Sunday. Each of the guardians that is coming, we will have a table or a booth, so you could have a session with whatever crystal skulls you see. Most of the crystal skulls that people are bringing, which are old, seem to be what are called the Tibetan or Mongolian skull, which is a stylized skull that's come out of this area. It's not as human-looking. Mitchell Hedges skull is an exact duplicate of a human bone skull. Quite a few of the skulls we have are more human-like. We actually have a rose quartz skull called Rosalita that was done by Chinese carvers, which has a movable jaw. It's very powerful, loving skull as well. So basically what'll happen at the conference is I believe there's going to be 10 different speakers. So when you go, you can decide, okay, I want to hear all the speakers. I want to attend the ceremonies. I'd like to sit down and talk to some of these guardians and teachers at their booth. I want to have a session with their skull. In our case, when we do our session, we also do a reading too. Mm-hmm. So it's not just sitting at the skull and experiencing the energy. You also get a reading from Katrina. You get a reading from myself. And, I'm sure there'll be books there. And it's just the idea. It's like almost a dream come true that, you have a crystal skull, you're interested, and you want to connect with your family. Well, this is going to be the place to be in September to connect with many other people who have similar experiences. And I'm sure there'll be crystal skulls for sale, too.
That was going to be my next question for people who are interested in getting a crystal skull. Would there be any there?
Yeah, I believe there will be some there. For us, what we've done is there's one crystal skull we have called Geronimo Golden Eagle Eye, which is also made by the same carver as Portal de Luz. It has indigenous energies, and as we would share that skull with people, they really liked it. So we have some Chinese carvers we work with, and they've helped us to make what we call Geronimo Juniors. So I don't know if we'll have them there or people will be able to see what it looks like. But then there's another skull we're working on, which isn't officially out yet, that if it all happens the way I think it's going to be a major hit at the conference. And we're going to try to get skulls of this shape and form for people too. So I believe people will have the opportunity to be able to buy some crystal skulls if they don't already have their own. And the other thing that will be coming out next week, and we do this on the 13th of every month, is we do a Crystal Skull World Peace Meditation at the 13th hour on the 13th day of the month. So that means here in June 13th is Thursday. So we have people from all over the world that link in at their local time, 1 o'clock or 1300. And we've been doing that since 2009, I believe, this meditation, to share a very powerful loving energy and healing energy with people. So that's another thing people could participate. If people also are curious, how do they contact us? We have an amazing website or easy email to remember. Website is at CSE, like Crystal Skull Explorer, CSE.crystalexplorers.com. And our email is crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. So we also have access to information on the conference. If people want to ask about it, there's a Facebook group, there's a website for it. So, I think it's going to be a very incredible event, life-changing, because of the powerful energies of the combination of the people coming as well as the crystal skulls that'll be present.
Wonderful. Now, for my last question, I think you covered everything with the contact information, but are there any other conferences or workshops that you're going to be presenting anytime in the near future?
Well, I don't have exact dates yet, but I'm working with a couple in Cleveland, Ohio, that after we go to the conference in Chicago, that the following weekend, which would be the last weekend of September, we may do something with them. And there's another center near Greensboro, North Carolina, that's interested to have us come, but they haven't given us a schedule yet when we'll be going. So again, it would be kind of like a weekend event. And then, of course, if there's anyone in the area we live listening to you in Atlanta, we have people that come see us, and we do private sessions with them so they can work with the energy of the skulls or, get these readings that we do. So those are the things, the events coming up. And, of course, on our website, if people, well, the other thing, too, is let's say a person can't make any of these, they can still do the session with us because I've been doing it through like Skype and Zoom or by phone.
Okay.
I can link into the person, and that has been very effective as well. If they're interested, like in this kind of intuitive reading. And so that's basically, the different things we have going on for right now.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and giving me so much wonderful information about the crystal skulls and your background knowledge. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.